So I'm going to give you a couple of tips, really. One of the main tips really is just trying to grow your own and grow your youngsters, your children, your grandchildren, and just get them in the soil, because soil has antidepressant properties, and just by being in the soil, it really makes a difference to your health and well-being. So at the start of the season, we'll have a soil analysis, which will be carried out on the soil, just to ensure that, just like ourselves, the soil is fit and healthy to grow our vegetables. So what we do have is, in terms of growing at the start of the season in November, we will have green manures. So we use field beans, vetch, and brown mustard. And they basically get incorporated into a tray with molasses, mycorrhiza, which binds to the roots. And then that then is just incorporated onto the soil. And then in terms of soil preparation, by March time, the green manures will be up to about 2 or 3 feet. And before I came over here, I was literally shattered, because one day I just did all the fields and rotivated it. But the weather in the UK is pretty similar to here now, which is fortunate. But the plants are all wilting, so luckily we've got someone to water them. But in terms of how we do that, so the green manures are trimmed down, they're incorporated into the soil, so they give organic matter. So we're not putting manures into the soil. We're putting green manures. I don't know if you can see this, but the green manures will have nitrogen nodules. So the nitrogen nodules will be incorporated into the soil to give natural nitrogen. Starting off the season, we have to grow in greenhouses, so we're not blessed with sunshine like this. So we grow in a system called a vitapod, and that's a propagator. So that propagator there basically is our life, really, to grow our seeds. And this is a couple of tips here on giant parsnips and carrots. We did some filming with CBS recently, who came over, and that's going out in early May, on how we grow our giant vegetables. We start off with our parsnips and carrots in 1 litre pots. I'm not sure what that is in terms of a quart. And they're mixed with sand. We also use coir, which is coconut fibre. And the coconut fibre has it has air, and it has moisture retaining properties as well, but it doesn't have any nutrients in it. So what I've found is, growing in coir, you'll have a better root structure for the giants, and then they're more likely to fork. And the forking is what basically grows the giant carrots. So this is a picture of our concoction of mix that goes in. So we have composts, bat guano, which is bat poo, and then we have also these rooting biscuits, which has mycorrhiza in. And I'll show you some of those in a bit. As I said earlier, we're just growing your children and growing your own. These are my 2 nephews, Jack and Griff. If they water too much, then the sun will dry it out. So we all have to learn somehow and someday. These are photographs here of our carrots and parsnips, which start off in early January. So they have like a 12-month window. This is a photograph here of the plants just going into the ground. These are parsnips. We will add into the roots mycorrhiza, which is a natural inoculant of the roots to create a mass root system. And the more roots you have, the better energy is for the plants. That's our philosophy. So they're grown in flower pots, which are cut in half. We take the base out, which is no mean feat really, because we have to use a circular saw or a jigsaw to cut it out, and we have to watch our fingers. What we've tried this year is to grow on raised beds. So we're trying to get a bit more height into the parsnips, because we've had, I don't know if it's global warming, but we had mass rainfall over the last couple of weeks, and I dug out holes which are like 3 feet deep and full of water in the base. So we can't cope with that really, because we need to have the optimum conditions for growing the giants. This here is a photograph of the carrots when they're growing. That carrot on the top right there weighed 6.9 kilos, about 15 and a half pounds. These are grown with bat guano, chicken pellets, compost. We use vermiculite as well, which has moisture retaining properties, and also perlite, which helps with drainage. And we also use a T-tape, which is a trickle irrigation system. And this is the flexible reservoir, which we're using this year, and that has a plant timer attached to it. So I'll show you in a bit some of the photographs. These are some of the photographs of the carrots. there's one of me with my lovely jumper, but on the bottom left, that was when we first started in about 94. And there's Jamie with the carrot there, which is just one carrot, and that was what was weighed, the 15.5 pounds. In terms of giant cabbages, they're quite good for methane gas, but these ones here are, this is a photograph here of some of our giant cabbages. They grow between 80 to 90 pounds. The world's largest is held by Scott Robb in Alaska, which is over, I think, 130 pounds. So Alaska is blessed with 24-hour daylight and perfect growing conditions. So we have to battle with the elements. We start off our seeds in trays, and then they're just planted up. That's a heirloom seed which we've managed to find. And that one there is growing quite big at the moment. It's probably about 4.5 feet in diameter. So that's the very first time we've ever grown that seed. So the plants are started off in the ground in a controlled environment with EnviroMesh, which stops all the bugs, and we suffer with cabbage root fly and cabbage white butterflies, which will lay their eggs, and within a day a leaf will be munched up. This is Jamie here with just looking really for the caterpillars on the plants. He has great fun with that. Regular foliar feeding is good. What we use is something called SB Plant Invigorator, which is a horticultural soap. It's an organic soap. It did used to have urea in it, which helped to green up the plants, but because in the UK we have to do licenses for everything imaginable, and urea is not really that dangerous, I don't think, really, but it's something that helps with the growth of our marrows and our cabbages. And in terms of harvest time, this is Jamie with one of the cabbages. He has a pole saw which cuts the stem because his arms aren't long enough. And in terms of a happy ending for that cabbage, when we went to one of the shows down in Aberglasney, which is in Carmarthen, and if you've ever been to Carmarthen, Aberglasney Gardens is absolutely amazing gardens. This here was one of our cabbages. It weighed 78 pounds in weight. That was in mid-October. And there was a girl there who got chatted with me, and she was a school teacher, and she said, I want to take one of your cabbages back to our comprehensive school. And our comprehensive school is like a high school. And her husband come down with an Audi TT. I don't know if you have Audi TTs here. It's like a small sports car. I looked at the cabbage, looked at his boot, and how the heck is that going to get in there? So we had to saw the stem off. You can just about see it there. Otherwise, his windscreen would have shattered. But that there went to feed 1,000 school children. And something that I'm really passionate about is trying to engage with children and growing our own, really. And that went to science lessons, maths lessons, so they were measuring. And there's a lot of additional things that can come from growing vegetables, really. Jamie, this is a couple of slides here on his sunflowers. Jamie loves sunflowers. I remember when he was younger, accidents happened. He had a trowel, planted his sunflower, trowel dropped, sunflower snapped. So, but we had some spares. So this here is how they're grown. So we have a 3-inch by 3-inch frame. And then the sunflowers, because of the weight, they probably can weigh about 25, 26 pounds in weight, so we have to support the heads. They only grow about 10 to 12 feet. So Jamie wants to get the world record, which is 32 inches, but he always says that they didn't measure it properly, but you measure from petal to petal, but he needs to try a bit harder. That's an amazing picture there, which I got of 3 bees, and the bees are our life, really, and bees are becoming less and less within the UK because of certain chemicals and certain products that are being used, and it's amazing when you have a whole host of bees on the sunflower. Giant tomatoes, you guys can probably grow them outside, but we have to grow them in systems like this or in our soils. So this is a photograph of how we do it. Here, right, so tomato cuttings, so we'll grow a tomato, and then we'll take cuttings from the actual side shoots, and then we'll root those because they'll have a better root structure. So from the world's largest tomato, which is in the US, I think it's 8.41 or 8.6 something pounds, which is quite a big tomato. That seed goes for like 75 pounds, so maybe $80, $90 for one seed. So you think that's quite expensive, but from one seed you can potentially get 10 plants if you take the cuttings. So, and then from 10 plants you'll get hundreds of seeds potentially. So genetics are really important with our tomatoes. These are a number of cuttings, so from 8.41 pounds to 6.93. So Fabrice Boideau in France was the guy who started off all the seeds, and that's how some of the Americans have got some of the seeds. There's a couple of other Americans who have got different types of strains, like Big Zac and Delicious, but it's all about the genetics of the seed, and they're not genetically modified, they're just basically cross-pollinated, so we're making sure that we're keeping the genes going down the line. And this is a photograph here of some of the food that we use. So we use frass, which is mealworm poo, antagon, which is a chicken-based pellet, and then manganese, magnesium, and then bat guano. This here is a photograph of the root structure, so that's before they're going into the soil. And then we have, I don't know if you have any back massagers, but on eBay they're about £1.99, about $3, but these are basically replicate bee action. So what we're trying to do is we search for the mega bloom, which is a cluster of tomatoes, and that's going to be the one that's going to be the giant. These have disco lights on, but I don't know what colour they are now. So this is a photograph of plant support. So this is another way to pollinate just by shaking the plants. Sometimes Jamie shakes them a bit too hard, but and that's a photograph there of the mega bloom after. So you have to keep pollinating and using the different aids for about 5 to 7 days. And then if you've got any spare bras or spare tights, then use those to support your tomatoes. It depends how big they are, but the smaller ones are no good. So. And this is a photograph here of how they're grown. So this is one in the Go-Go system, which we grew last year, which got to just over 5.5, I think it was £6, sorry. I'm trying to convert quite quickly from kilos. So. And there's Jamie having a devour of his tomato. This is our largest marrow that we grew, which was £171. And I remember lifting that with my brother and thinking, wow, that's hurt my back. So in terms of germinating, what we will do, we will use a plastic container, and this is called chitting. So we'll use a kitchen towel, moisten the kitchen towel. I couldn't bring any seeds in because I'd have probably been arrested. So, and this here is moistened. The seeds are put in. I don't know if you can see that, but the seeds are then germinated, and then they'll root within 3 to 4 days. You don't have to. Some people use sandpaper to sand off the edges, but the fresher seeds will germinate pretty much straight away, and some within 1 or 2 days. So. This is a photograph here of the marrows after about 2 weeks. So they've got their first seed leaf forming, and you can see the root structure of the marrow. So starting off the marrow in the ground, we use fishing umbrellas because we get lots of rainfall. So we're just trying to control the amount of moisture that goes around the root plate. And then we also use something called sheep's wool. And the sheep's wool compost is an organic-based compost, and it's sheep's wool mixed with bracken. And that has really good moisture-retaining properties, and also it has a slow-release nitrogen. And that's really helped us. So what we do is we mix the mycorrhiza with the sheep's wool, and then right along the line, we will put the mycorrhiza and sheep's wool underneath each leaf, because each leaf will have a rooting node, and the rooting node there will probably go maybe 5 or 6 feet. Not in the ground, but across the surface. So that's why it's really important to have good soil health. And mycorrhiza, this is a photograph here of the mycorrhiza on the actual root structure. And before we started using this, we didn't have many roots on our marrows or zucchinis. And just by using this product, the root system is grown tremendously. So pollinating the marrow, we control the pollination, so we don't let the bees do it, we want ourselves to do it to control the genes. So what we're trying to do is, an American called Howard Dill, he unfortunately invented it's called a dill ring. So that's a ring in a pumpkin which will basically crack. So the wall of the actual marrow will become thin. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get that out of the marrow. So I've got one marrow which doesn't split, so I'm trying to, but it takes years to do this. I've been doing it since I was a kid, so.